What's up, guys? I'm on a seller appointment right now. I am in Fort Pierce, Florida, and one of the things that I do, and I recommend you do as well, is when you're going on appointments to look at properties, what most people tend to do is they plug the address of the property into their GPS, they drive out there, they look at the property, and maybe they look at some comps, and that's it. What we do, and we train all of our acquisitions people to do, is arrive at the appointment half an hour early and then have your comp sheet with you. So I have my comp sheet right next to me, and then what I do is I look at a couple of the sold comps that have sold, right? So for example, there's a house right down there that sold for $176,000. Now this specific seller is in foreclosure, right, and they're looking to pay off their mortgage. They owe $84,000. So the goal is basically they just want to pay it off and be done with it. So now on a fix and flip, I'm trying to figure out, well, what could I sell this house for? What is it worth? So I see one reasonable, pretty decent comp at 176, and I drive by and I go look at it so I can get a feel for what that house is like relative to the one that I'm going on the appointment for. Now I drove to the one that's my appointment before looking at this house. Pretty similar. This is a tad bigger and has a pool, so I'm going to adjust it down and say probably, I think that if this sold for 175, maybe I can sell this one for 150 or 155. I also see something for sale, so there's a for sale sign right here. So now what I do is I open my realtor.com app, and on the realtor.com app, let me see if I can put that in there so you guys can see it. So basically it shows you where I am located, that red dot, right? And then you can see there's a house for sale right next to it for $199. So that's just a free app you can use from realtor.com. So anytime you see a for sale sign, I just get in the habit of doing that. So I'll say, well, the house 2 doors down from the sold for $175 about 4 months ago. This one's listed at $199. Also listed a little bit bigger. The house I'm going to is a 3-2 with a 2-car garage. That's also a 3-2 with a 2-car garage. So I'm thinking this is 0.8 miles away from my appointment. So maybe I could sell this house for, you know, 170 or 175, right? So if I bought it at 84, that would be a pretty good deal. Now let's talk a little bit about foreclosure. So going on this foreclosure appointment, so it's a little different because typically the person is behind on their payments, they haven't made their payments for a while, and they're in foreclosure, right? So if they're 90 days late and the bank has sued them, they've issued a lis pendens, which is a lawsuit pending essentially. It's Latin for lawsuit pending. What that means is that he can't afford the payment. The reason he can't afford his payment is because he lost his job, and he also got divorced, right? So a couple of pain points that are in there, and he said, look, I just want out of this house, I just want the balance paid, I want to move on, right? So combination of the divorce and the foreclosure and the loss of the job has all culminated in this individual calling us based on a postcard we sent to them and making this appointment. So now when I'm going in there's a couple of ways to look at this. And it's very important for you to understand on foreclosure. So first thing you need to find out is, we already know the numbers, right? So we already know, look, I want to buy this for 84 and I think it's worth maybe 150 to 170. That's fine. But now negotiating with the seller, a couple of things you need to know. Number one is, has the bank already sued them for foreclosure, or are they just maybe 1 or 2 payments behind? It's very important to know. Why? Because there's a couple of things you can do with this. Number one, you could potentially assume their mortgage, meaning you could make their mortgage current and just take over the payments. Does the bank allow that? No. Is it legal? Well, per the terms of the mortgage, no, it's not, because the mortgage is not assumable, but people do this all the time. You know, if you're sending in those mortgage payments to the bank and you rent the property out, as long as the bank's getting that payment, there shouldn't be any issues. Way people get caught with assumption on mortgages is by not changing the insurance, and then the bank gets a notification, looks the property up, and there's an issue, right? So if you are going to do that, I always like to be very straightforward with the seller and say, look, I'm going to take over your payments. My goal is to either sell or refinance this within the next 2 years. Worst case scenario, you get a call from the bank saying, hey, this mortgage is due, then you just refinance it or put a private lender or pay it off or whatever, right? So not the end of the world. And that's one strategy, the assumption of the mortgage. So another strategy is simply buying the house for cash, right? So that would be either using your cash or borrowing cash from a private lender, someone like me, and saying, hey, I'm going to buy this for $84,000. I need to borrow $84,000. So if you came to me, let's say this was your deal, I'd say, well, if you put down, let's say 40, and I'll loan you 70, and then you can go ahead and buy this house, right? So that's strategy 2, would be to pay cash for this house. That would be a good strategy if you're planning on fixing and flipping. So the first thing you try and figure out is, well, do I want to fix and flip this property, or do I want to keep it as a rental? So a large part of that will depend on when I go into the property, because if I go into the property and it's in pretty decent shape inside, then it might make more sense to just try and take over that mortgage and then have that payment and rent it out, right? So let's say the mortgage payment on $84,000, let's say at 5%, and I don't know what the mortgage payment is, and that's part of what I'm going to figure out when I go on this appointment. I'm going to find out what's the mortgage balance. I'm going to ask to see the mortgage statement. I'm going to see what the mortgage payment is, whether it includes taxes and insurance. So I know exactly what the number is. But let's say that number's $570, and I know for a fact I can rent this for $1,200. And let's say this individual's only 1 month behind on their mortgage payment of $500-600. Well, I might be able to just sign a deed basically saying, hey, I'm going to buy a house and I'm just going to take over the mortgage payments, and then all I have to do is send $570 to the bank and rent it out and collect $1,200 a month. That's one strategy, right? Another strategy that I could do is if I wanted to fix and flip it, and this would be a better strategy if the house is a mess inside, right? So in other words, if it needs new flooring and the kitchen cabinets are shot and it's just not in a good shape, which generally speaking in foreclosure, when someone doesn't have money and they've lost their job, they probably haven't put money into their property, so it's probably not going to be in a great condition, then it would make more sense to do a fix and flip. In that case, you know, there's not a whole bunch of benefit to the assumption. I mean, you could theoretically assume the mortgage, not come out of pocket all that cash. You could take all that cash and put it towards your repairs. But then again, the flip side of that is you could just go and get a private lender and borrow the money and buy it for cash, fix it up and put it on the market, right? So really very, very important, the key of where you want to be in on that scenario, whether it's a fix and flip or rental, and you need to know that going in. And also what you need to know going in is what are the values of the property. So if you just show up at your appointment 30 minutes earlier and you look at your comps, so I took one comp of my comp sheet, which was 0.8 miles away from the property. I came to look at it. It's a $175,000 sale. 2 doors away from it, there's another property that's listed for sale on realtor.com, and I showed you how I used this app on my phone to see that that's listed at $199. So I've got an idea that, you know, fixed up, decent inside, these houses are listing at like $175, $199. If I could buy it at $84, obviously there would be a score. Even if I had to put in $25,000 or $30,000 into the property, it'd still be a score. So now that I know where I am and I know what I'm trying to do with the property, I've just got to go there and go on that appointment, right? So remember, when I go on that appointment, the key thing on that appointment is to figure out the mortgage payment, the monthly payment, the interest, the taxes, the insurance. All right, so I got a guy behind me. I can see a car parked. It's a little curious. I'm going to wrap this one out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys on the next video. Okay, so now that I've reviewed the comps and I gave you the rundown, I'm now going to the appointment, right? So I'm pulling up here, I'm turning onto the street where the property is located. And remember, I did preview this property. When I say preview, I mean I drove by it before I went to look at those comps. So I drove by the property, then I went to look at the comps, and then I went to look at, on realtor.com, the listing. Now I'm on the street, and the property is going to be coming up on my left, so I'm going to show it to you. It's going to be coming up over my shoulder over here, right? So let's see which one it is, and there it is right here. So it's this property right with a truck right over my shoulder over here, right? So you can see it over there, so kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can make it a little cleaner there. Roll the window down. So basically similar to the other houses, but you know, it doesn't have a 2-car garage. It's actually a 1-car garage. The roof looks a little faded, a little worn, but okay. And I'm waiting for this guy to show up. I don't think he showed up yet. He said he was running a little bit late, but that truck was there before and it's still there, so I'm assuming that he's still coming. But I can see, you know, for a fix and flip, that roof, if I was selling FHA, that roof's a little worn, so I'd probably have to put a new roof on. Maybe reshingle that, could be, you know, $6,000-8,000, as much as 10, but if you get good guys, you can probably get it done for 6 to 8. Then assuming the interior, based on that square footage, I'm going to say it's going to probably be somewhere around 20 5,000, maybe 20 to 25. So let's say worst case scenario, you're in at a 35,000. Putting in brand new kitchens, bathrooms, kitchen, flooring, painting inside and out, and on a new roof. Garage door looks probably okay. So now go ahead and list it maybe for around that price point. You know, you want to sell it quick, maybe price it aggressively like at 169, and then run your numbers backwards. So if you sold it at 169, what would you pay in commissions, right? Typically I pay 3% to a buyer's agent, 2% in closing costs, so that's 5%. So 169 less 8 would be 161, and figure 35 in work. So let's say 160 minus 35 would put me at 125. And so if I bought this at, let's say, 84, there should be about $40,000. Let's see, 15 plus 25, so that's, yeah, 40,000 profit. And figure 10,000 will probably get washed out in points and fees and interest and whatnot. And there are, you know, costs. You everything from paying for lock boxes and realtor signs to paying the utility bill to paying someone to mow the lawn, points to get into the loan, interest. You know, you're borrowing $84,000 even at 10%, $8,400 a year. If it takes you 6 months to flip the house, that's, you know, half, that's $4,200 in interest. So 10,000 would be a good estimate. So take that 40, knock 10 off, it leaves me at 30. So on a fix and flip, I could make $30,000 probably on this property. And at that price point, I really love these price points, the sub 100,000, because at that 84,000 price point, it works real well as a rental too. So I'm going to be looking at that angle, and, you know, how much is the mortgage payment? What's your monthly mortgage? How much do you owe? How long is left on the mortgage? Does it include taxes and insurance? Because that could be an angle too. Clean it up and rent it out. So either way, probably a score. I'm going to go in now. Actually, I'm going to drive around a little bit more, come back in 5 minutes and see if he's here, and then go in on my appointment. And if I buy this house, I'll do another video for you guys and show you what it looked like. All right, I'll see you on the next video. Make sure you click on that subscribe button right there, and if you click on the subscribe button, then you get notified of upcoming videos. And until then, I'll see you on the next one.